Hello everybody, welcome to another installment of Uinta Garage. Today we're working on this 72 Blazer you see sitting behind me. We picked this up from a junkyard about a year ago, and the plan is just to get it running and see where we go from there. So the next step up is to give it a tune-up, and we're also going to upgrade the distributor to an HEI distributor from the original points that are on there now. So let's take a look and see what we got to work with. All right, let's take a look under the hood. As you can see, this has still got the stock 350 it came with in 72. One of the nice things about this, it's basically unmolested. So let's get working on this thing and get that distributor out. All right, now that we've got a distributor out, we've got a rag in the hole to keep debris out of the engine, and it's time to start looking at the wiring. So there's two wires that run our point style coil, and one of the wires is a ground that's attached to the bracket right here, and we're not going to need that anymore, so we pull the bracket off and we can just set that off to the side. The other wire is this yellow wire here that provides power to the coil, and that comes up through a wiring loom that runs across the top here. I've already pulled the tape off so we can get a look at these wires and we can see what we've got going on here. So that yellow wire comes up, and it's this wire right here. The other yellow wire runs down to the starter, and that's so that during start, the starter provides 12 volts to the coil while you're starting the engine. The other wire here runs from the ignition, and it's on during run, and that wire provides 9 volts to the coil during run, which is all that the point style coil needs. But since we're switching to HEI, we're going to need a full 12 volts, so we're going to have to remove this resistance wire and replace it with a wire that's going to allow the full 12 volts. So let's take a look at the other side. Here's the bulkhead connector that we need to deal with. There's one bolt that goes right in the center of this connector. You pull that bolt out, and then this whole connector will come off. It's been 50 years since this is off. It can be a real pain in the butt. I pulled this off before shooting this so that it's a little quicker. Anyway, take that off. You can take this piece apart, because this is the part that we're going to be dealing with for our replacing that wire, which is right there. This whole thing can come all the way out so that you can work on it more easily. I wanted to show you a close-up look at the resistance wire that runs the points coil. You can see it's printed right on there, resistance do not cut. That's because the length of the wire itself is what provides the resistance. Let's see if we can see the end of that. The resistance you need to get from 12 volts down to 9 volts to run the coil. This is the connection point for that in our bulkhead connector. It's the second wire over on the top here. I started cleaning away the gunk here that's there to keep water out of the connector, and this connector isn't coming out anytime soon. The correct way to do this would be to pull the spade connector out of the plastic housing here and replace it with the correct wire. But this thing's 50 years old. It's not coming out of there, so I'm going to have to splice a wire onto this resistance wire. But the resistance is provided by the length of the wire itself, so knocking the actual length of this wire down to less than an inch should be fine, and we're not going to have any problems. I've got the wire stripped and a solder and seal connector on there. Now we just need to use the heat gun to shrink the heat shrink and melt the solder, and we'll be good to go. All right, the solder is melted in the wires, so we should have a nice connection there, and we're good. Got these wires stripped back, so now we can use our solder and seal connector to make a nice watertight connection, and it'll also solder the wires together. We get our heat gun out and heat up the heat shrink. The last step in our wiring upgrade here is going to be remove that spade connector and attach an HEI connector. Now, I picked this one up from local parts store, and it's like 12 bucks, no big deal. So we'll pull this thing out, get it attached to that yellow wire, and then we'll be ready to pop in our HEI distributor. So here's our last connection made, and you can see that the solder is melted into the wire, so we know we've got a nice good connection. Here's our pigtail that's going to go into the HEI coil, and we're good to go. This green wire is for a tack, but this truck doesn't have a tack, so we'll be leaving that hanging free. Here we've got the old points distributor, and here is the HEI distributor. As you can see, the HEI distributor is quite a bit bigger around, so we may have to do some slight massaging on the firewall to get that in, but usually it fits without too much problem. One thing to keep in mind is the position of your distributor when you pull it out. You want to be able to get your new distributor in the same position. So you need to mark where this one was. Now, I forgot to do that. Luckily, this didn't turn, so I was able to see where it is. So we'll put this one in the same way, and hopefully we get it in correctly and not 180 degrees out. Our HEI distributor is now fully installed. Now we just got to change our plugs and wires, and we'll be ready to fire this thing up and get it timed. Luckily, we didn't have to do any clearancing on the firewall. Everything fit just fine. We've got our HEI coil in place, new plugs, wires, the whole bit. When we put it in initially, it was in at 180 out, so try to remember to check that when you pull a distributor, so you don't have any of the same problem that we did. The plugs on this thing were nasty. So some of the improved performance we're getting here is obviously going to be from having new plugs and wires. But let's take a look at how this thing runs with the HEI. As you can see, this thing starts right up, no problem, runs smoothly. For a junkyard engine, I think we did pretty good. It starts right up, idles just fine. You can see that the HEI conversion is no big deal, and our Junkyard Blazer here is on its way to being a good runner.
Hey guys, if you like what you see, subscribe to Uinta Garage, hit the bell to get notifications, like our channel, and share it with all your friends.